If you're looking for some straight-up marketing advice that's super chilled and also a bit of a laugh, then grab yourself a drink and get ready for Marketing and Margaritas, a podcast that makes marketing entertaining. Brought to you by Rebel Nation, direct from regional Queensland.
Hello and welcome to Marketing and Margaritas. Today we're joined by Ange from Wallace and Wallace. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome anytime. We don't usually get that.
No, normally people are a bit nervous and stuff.
No, so this is very much out of the scope of my usual day-to-day stuff. So,
as a lawyer, you talk for a living,
I talk all day,
so
every day, but I guess, on a formal basis. It's a little bit intimidating with the camera, but thank you for the opportunity.
Well, this is right up your wheelhouse. So we're talking marketing from our perspective, but also how that overlaps with the legal stuff and stuff you should be doing properly when you start a business. So we have got a couple of Q&As that we get asked ourselves that we don't really always know because that's not our area.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying to Ange, like, we get asked these questions a lot because people obviously don't, that we're doing stuff for them for their business already and they don't necessarily know where that line is. And that's something I always try and drill into my team of where that line is, because I've seen what happens when marketing people are like, oh no, just do this and this.
It'll be fine.
And then they get sued.
And obviously on the flip side of that, this is our skill set, but then when it comes to the creative side of things, not our skill set at all. So,
And I think there's like a blurry line of what order to do what into.
Yeah, because it's not definitive, to be fair. Do you ever get asked, so does it happen on the other side? Do people ever ask you, help us come up with a business name or anything?
And you're just like, you don't want me doing that for you. Creative talent, I missed out as far as I was concerned.
Joe Smith and Co.
Sounds very respectable. I mean, from a marketing perspective.
It'll work. So.
Okay, Ange, so you're from Wallace and Wallace. We know that so far. Tell us, what do you do there and what, I suppose, got you into the legal industry?
So I've recently been appointed as a partner at Wallace and Wallace, which is, I guess, really exciting from a lot of perspectives. I did my initial training, so my first lot of work experience I did as a uni student at Wallace and Wallace. I then came back to so it very much feels like home. Cool. I've spent the bigger part of my career working at Wallace and Wallace, but I did my work experience there on a number of occasions over the course of my degree when I was doing my degree at UQ. I then came home to do my article clerkship. So that's the old school equivalent of today's, I'm showing my age now, of today's trainee solicitor. So you spend 2 years working under the guidance of obviously experienced solicitors, and you transition and rotate through the various areas of law and basically come up with what you think,
That's a good idea too, because then it's sort of like, you might be like, oh yeah, man, I'm going to totally be into criminal law. And then you move around the different areas and stuff. And you're like, no, actually criminals are big, scary people. And I don't want to do that.
And that's very much the case. I thought I wanted to be a family lawyer, found the subject so interesting at uni, spent a week in work experience and decided, no, I'm literally going to be rocking in the corner in the fetal position. Emotionally invested.
In
every file,
and
so
divorce
it's messy. So I'm more, people talk about lawyers being lovers or fighters. So I work in the space where obviously people are trying to get to the same end result, the same objectives.
So then you're the lovers.
So lovers, not the fighters. Whereas obviously then you've got your litigators that are happy to, fight all day, tooth and nail every day. And then you've got your family lawyers and criminal lawyers, which also don't the right temperament.
Or a solicitor?
Same.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So previously the term lawyer was more so an American term, but we've sort of moved very much to, that kind of terminology.
I never knew that.
So,
cool.
I did my training here, then went to Brisbane for a bit, went to London and worked as an Australian qualified lawyer over there, and then came back to Mackay in 2007. I've been here ever since. So, and
family and stuff here and everything.
Family's
too.
here.
Yeah.
It's an amazing place to work professionally. It's a great place to raise kids. So I've heard.
I mean, I'm not sure about that personally.
She's just going to take my
I'm just like everyone says whatever it says.
And Wallace and Wallace, we've just an amazing team, a really good staff morale, and it has that kind of family vibe about it. I guess the main thing I love about my job is that building client relationships and helping people achieve their objectives. That sounds a bit cliche, but
it's the same thing for us, man. It's
exactly
why we do what we do is you meet someone and you're like, what you're doing is cool. I want to help you achieve whatever that is, sort of thing. You know?
And I think that's the major advantage. Like, I've worked in Brisbane, I've worked in London, but I've come back here, and you just kind of get that real one-on-one, I guess, interaction every single day, and there's this amazing variety of work that you get to.
Yeah.
So, you know, helping someone achieve their objectives might be, you know, they're setting their business up, buying or selling a business, buying or selling a commercial property. You're helping a family transition, like, a rural property down through generations. You're helping someone put in place an estate plan to give them sort of peace of mind that they're leaving behind
their legacy, the
way they want to, and you get to do all of those things. Whereas obviously, if you're working in a huge office, you're often pigeonholed into a really intricate specialisation. So that's, I think, what makes working in Mackay so amazing.
And the thing is, it's like anything, it's got its pros and cons. Like, you know, if you're in a metro area, you have like a social media agency, or you even have places that are just like a Facebook ads agency and stuff. Whereas like in a regional centre, we have to do fucking everything. Like, we do all the digital and billboards and printing and whatever sort of thing. So it's like it's exciting because you get to do so many different things. You're not locked into just doing this one thing all the time.
The same thing all day, every day.
At the same time, challenging. Yeah. Because, like, you've got to be across 50 million things.
That's exactly right. And
it's
using
skills,
like a wide range of skills. So that's the other thing about law that's, makes it great.
Okay, so when I was younger, I was actually going to do a dual degree in psychology and law because I wanted to be a lawyer, but I wanted to, like, be a really fucking awesome lawyer. I think that's what the motivation was.
Would you have been a lover or a fighter?
Oh, fighter.
Yeah, absolute fighter.
That was the whole thing, was like getting up and being like, they're wrong, objection, or whatever that is.
But I feel like you would have worn the emotional weight of some things. Like,
really?
You would have had to pick your area. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because not everyone knows this, but you're a bit of a softie.
And giving away all your secrets.
Can we strike that from the record, please? But the reason, so I didn't end up going into it. Like, I did try out some legal courses in uni and stuff like that. You have to remember so much. Legit, there's a lot of remembering of things.
Yeah.
Do you find, like, so...
Yeah, and there is, I think, the attention to detail skills, the negotiating, and there's huge amounts of reading. So if that's not your thing, then...
I love the reading, but the retention part, I could not, like, case law and precedent. Yeah. Oh, hold on, this solution from somewhere else.
Yeah. No. And you see that in litigators. Like, we've got some amazing litigators in our office, and their ability to just recall like intricate facts and names and
God, I'm terrible. I'll hear something on the radio and then I'll try and tell my husband, and I'm like, look, it was really good. And he's like, I don't understand how that would work. I'm like, they explained it so well.
To be fair, you also only just had a baby a little while ago, so, like, you know, lack of sleep.
I've been told the more kids you have, the worse it gets.
To look forward to.
It doesn't come back. Fun.
Okay, cool. All right. So one last question before we move into our actual marketing legal overlap stuff. How long have you been lawyering, soliciting? No.
Yeah,
lawyering.
That sounds far more legit. Again, you've got me showing my age. So I was admitted as a solicitor in 2004. So that's, 18 years.
So you got the chops. All right, cool. That's where I wanted to get that from. All right, cool. So first off, one of the things that obviously we do when people first come to us is that we do help them develop their business name and develop their logo, which is like their brand identity and stuff like that. We can do all of the, the cool looking things and make sure that it's all aligned and stuff. But then it comes into that point of whether trademarking or not. So I know, like, when I first started in business, I thought trademarking was just for big corporates. Yeah. So I was like, I'm a little freelancer. I don't even need to worry about this.
I don't need to trademark. I won't get any value.
Yeah. And then I remember talking to, like, a networking event, talking to a solicitor here, and them saying, oh, like, trademarking is like your logo and your colours and your and like there's 50 million things just in that. So can you talk a little bit about that trademarking and how... Like, is it like we really, really should do this, or is it kind of like a wait until you're big kind of thing?
It's not necessarily a wait until you wait until your big thing. There's obviously that distinction between your business name and then the trademarking of the name and the branding and the logo, etc. So the business name is just your administrative requirement, and that's a legal requirement. So if you're trading as anything other than just your name, even if it's John Smith and Sons, obviously you've got to register your business name, and that process is relatively straightforward. You can do it online. There's government online option.
Yeah, I think I did mine myself.
Yeah, very straightforward.
Through the likes of ASIC.
Yeah, so you've got ASIC Connect, and then you've also got an Australian government business registration option where you can do a range of things. So you're registering for your ABN, you're registering your business name, and you can register for taxes, so GST, PAYG, FBT, etc. Then, like your trademark itself, though, so your business name's identifying your business, but it's not affording you any sort of protection as far as that logo, etc.
That's what a trademark is, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's a protection.
It's a protection
element. It's not like a
from-
legal requirement in the sense of I can't trade without a trademark.
Yeah, so you've got your admin requirement in your business name, and then your trademark is where you're afforded those protections. If you've got obviously people in, you know, similar businesses doing similar things, it's giving you the exclusive use of, you know, that brand, that logo.
So that, yeah, no one
etc.
else could come in and use like Rebel Nation or whatever sort of thing.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. So if it's trademarks, and there's obviously benefits from trademarks in terms of the fact that it's actually listed on a public database. So that acts as a deterrent, obviously, then for people in using something that's substantially
Ripping you off.
similar.
Yeah.
Ripping you off.
Was
And
it Cadbury? Didn't they like trademark their purple or something as well?
Yeah, so there's all sorts of things
Yeah,
that you
like there's so many
obviously,
details you can trademark, it's
you think
insane.
of Cadbury and you think of purple. So
So does that mean no one else can use that purple, or they just like in that industry? It depends on how they
it's
trademark it.
obviously, you know, it's not a blanket, no one else gets to use purple, but it's
I
like,
got purple coat
Sometimes just like, sorry guys, we're having to strike this one off the things no one can use.
but
it
you
for
can't
Cadbury.
obviously then be doing something that's going to give someone you're essentially passing yourself off as, you know, and drawing on the goodwill.
This
or
is
benefit
Cadbury.
from the good-
Tasty
Tastes
chocolate.
delicious. Yeah, and then on the flip side of that, it's also giving you, I guess, a defence if people turn around and say, well, that's too substantially similar to me. Well, if you've got the trademark, you've got the trademark.
Too bad,
So,
it's mine.
and it's also then, you know, if you're coming to sell your business or license, it's very easy if you've got that trademark then to pass that on to the
So it's
purchaser.
part of your like succession planning and stuff too.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and all of those things obviously add to goodwill, add to the value of your business. But it's not a blanket, everyone should have a trademark either. You've got to obviously wait, you know, the process itself is time consuming, it's costly. So you've got to, I guess, weigh up, do you think you're going to get the return on investment for,
Yeah, I don't think anyone else is going to come in and take like Rebel Nation and our logo
Oh,
and stuff, but at the same
underestimating
time,
yourself. Yeah.
That's it. You don't think it's like insurance. You don't think it's a problem until it's actually a problem.
And that's
then
the
you're on
thing,
the
you know,
back
at
foot.
the outset, obviously, you know, when you're just starting up, and then you get so sort of drawn into, I guess, building the business up. By the time you realise, you know, it's something that needs to be trademarked, that's when you potentially like lost your opportunity.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
someone's
So
onto
basically,
things.
you're just saying do it as like preventative sort of thing
I
before
feel
it
like
becomes
you
an
just
issue.
use our podcast to get free advice from people. You're like, okay, we need to do this.
That's on the to-do list, right? Like that's what, you're writing
it was
it down, aren't you?
already there.
Mm.
We're in the process.
Okay, well, this one I can't use as a to-do list. So copyright. This is a huge thing in our industry where people are like, basically what you can and can't use of other people's stuff and what people can and can't use of your stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you Google something and then you grab it off Google Images and use it for your socials, or like we have people who want us to build websites for them where they've just grabbed images of other people's websites.
Here's
and
something
we're
I
like,
prepared earlier.
we're like, we can't do that. You need to have your own unique stuff. And then, you know, on the same token, we have clients that get concerned about posting their stuff on
because people are gonna
socials
steal
because
it
then they're
and
like,
then hold it out as their own.
yeah, and I honestly don't know, like, where is that
Where's the
copywriting
line?
line and stuff? Like, I've tried to look into it before, but it's kind of
It's a little
complicated.
bit, complicated.
Like
and
most legal fucking things are.
Yes, yeah. So it depends.
Great answer.
Great answer, what you love to hear. But as a starting point, you assume that everybody's work is protected by copyright.
Right.
And so you've obviously got, you've got literary works, so that's things like novels, it's website content,
Okay.
it's computer programs, song lyrics, then you've got artistic works, so paintings, drawings, plans, etc.
Does graphic design kind of come in under
dramatic works, so that's like your choreography and your plays. Musical works, they're separate from the actual sound recording and the lyrics, and then you've got things like film, sound recording, broadcasts, and published editions. So the owner of those works, generally the rule of thumb is that they've got the exclusive rights as far as
if I
those works.
created it,
yeah,
it's
mine, subject to some qualifications. So it's mine, and I've got the sole exclusive rights to reproduce. But then you get into that realm of did I create those works in the course of my employment? And often, if that's the case, unless there's an agreement to the contrary,
anything I make is yours.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And that's exactly right. So
you made it, but it's my shit.
That's right. So yeah. Work that I do as far as articles is concerned, website content for the Wallace and Wallace Works website, obviously that belongs to the employer, that belongs to the firm.
So if you write a blog,
if I write precedents, all of that work
is fine.
That's the general rule of thumb.
Well, if I wrote something for our website, you wouldn't expect me to leave and then copy and paste it onto someone else's website. So
I get it in that respect, but at the same time, like that's your unique understanding and skill
and it will
talent,
depend obviously on the employment relationship, and you can obviously you can agree to do anything.
No, I'm just going to amend my contract.
All my stuff is mine.
So what about then using other people's
works? So ultimately it comes down, misusing someone's creation. So
if you reference them. Like, if you were nicking someone's photo off social media, because, like, it would obviously really depend on the circumstance. But, like, if you...
Oh, like, you're like a sourced bot from...
Yeah, like someone's photo. If you,
Yeah, obviously permission is,
And just like, I don't want to make myself into a recording now.
And full disclaimer here, this copyright area is more so... it's not my area of expertise. So one of our commercial litigators... Danielle Woodward has, shout out to Danielle because she's obviously given me some of the content to talk about today. That is her, and copyright disputes are her forte.
Because it's a huge thing.
Yeah, and it's an intricate, and as lawyers we specialise in particular areas. That said, there's some fair dealing exceptions when it comes to reproducing someone's work. So if you're producing or publishing that work for the purposes of criticism and review, parody and satire, research and study, or reporting news, that's a fair dealing exception.
So I can make fun of someone's shit before I can actually just put it on my social.
Yeah, pretend it's yours.
Oh my God, isn't that crazy?
So whether you can use someone's stuff ultimately comes down to that permission. So a license, that's your best level of protection. But if you've just got some sort of written confirmation, then that's your defence. Then I've
So can we just clearly
work.
state you cannot just grab something off the internet and use it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, unless it falls into that fair dealing exception, or unless you've got express permission.
Yeah.
Ideally in writing, so that it's not a he said she said scenario. So,
Yeah.
lawyers hate agreements to agree,
And that's
no paper trail to show that no, we talked about that. You said I could do it.
I will save everything on email.
Yeah, and that's one of the things like I advise clients sort of thing. They'll be like, oh, I've just grabbed these off the internet. Can you use them? And I always write back to them and say, look, I really recommend that you actually go to that. So for example, client logos.
Yep.
People want to build credibility on their website. So if I have a slider of logos for organizations that I've worked with, then it shows the level of quality of work I produce.
Yes.
But as I always say to the people who they're like, oh, I've just grabbed their logos off their website. Can you put them on our website? I'm like, how would you feel if someone did that to
the same,
you?
And that comes back to, that permission, that license
like,
to you. And it doesn't have to be
permission.
something, particularly detailed or,
No, it's just, but also from our perspective, I'm like, the logo that you've just ripped off from somewhere, how do you know that that's actually their most current and proper logo as well? Like, if they're your client, you actually give a shit about them, do the right thing by them, contact them, ask them for their correct logo, ask them if they're comfortable with them being on your website.
And
because
so,
someone
yeah,
might not want people to know who their supplier is,
right.
and that's their right, man.
Yeah, and you've obviously then go from, you'll just get a totally different outcome. You ring them, can I use this? It's like, yeah, that's awesome. You want to promote me, you want to promote our collaboration.
Yeah, totally
Or
happy to do it.
they literally open a website one day and see that someone's used that without their permission, and it's a totally different feel.
And you
about
think
it.
of the big fellas and stuff too, like Anglo and BHP and everything. We have so many people who take their logos and put them, and that's why I say to clients, I'm like, if you go and do that, you realize that anyone can go and do that. You know what I mean? If you want this to be legitimate, like, go and get that permission, do it properly, ask, like, it will take a little bit longer, but you're doing it in the right way.
Yeah, and then you obviously don't have the fallout.
If you want to keep them as a fucking
well,
client.
that's exactly
do the
right.
right thing
Yeah,
by
don't
them.
burn your relationships by a lack of communication.
So if I then saw my logo on someone else's website and I hadn't given them permission to use it,
So then obviously you've got rights potentially in copyright infringement.
Come on, be like,
so
take down your website.
Then yeah, your rights are essentially like injunctions to, so they're to cease and desist, and then the step beyond that is damages. So if you're suffering some sort of quantifiable loss from their use of your creations, your content, your works, then yeah.
I'm taking the task for it.
That's right.
all I
But
want.
you've got to obviously, yeah. Again,
Prove that there's been damages.
Yeah, and prove there's been damages, and it's got to be a cost-benefit scenario. Am I going to get a return on investment for, or do I just want them to stop, take my content down?
No, I want them to
Yeah.
pay.
Pay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I want them to
Public-
suffer.
yeah,
there's the
apology.
Publicly pay.
Yeah, there's the flattering you as opposed to, well, let's all be friends.
Okay, cool. All right, so moving on to disclaimers.
Yeah.
So we design email signatures for people, and we design websites for people, and then they sometimes ask us to put certain disclaimers and stuff on there, but then we do get asked by people saying, oh, can you add a disclaimer to that? And my response is always that I'm not a lawyer, so I can't actually write
I
something.
can't draft the disclaimer itself.
Yeah, because I don't know what needs to be protected and what doesn't need to be that's a lawyer's sort of thing.
And that, again, that will come down to the nature of your business.
So it is like you can't just like copy and paste one disclaimer
there
and
will
it like
obviously be
covers.
wording that you'll see basically duplicated across.
There's a structure that
there's a structure,
Yeah, right.
and then it can be customised based on your particular circumstances. There's no legal requirement to actually have a disclaimer, and it's not going to, I guess, protect you from things like misrepresentations, negligent advice,
anything that's specific to your business
or
too.
obligations under consumer protection laws. Like, you can't opt out of that by posting some disclaimer. But then on the flip side, there's obviously value in a disclaimer because it limits your liability. So
it's
if
risk
you're
mitigation.
yeah, that's exactly right. So I will give a presentation and I might be giving generic advice that across the board is largely accurate, but then depending on the specific circumstances of what you're
that's
doing
gonna
or
vary.
what your situation is.
Yeah, you might need a higher level of protection or something.
Yeah,
So do we
or-
need a disclaimer for this podcast?
Absolutely. Always run with a disclaimer. So
All of Ange's advice is exactly specific to exactly your business. She's
not
thought
that.
about all of you who are listening, and it's 100% specific for you. You don't need to get any other advice ever.
And then, like, best practice is obviously that disclaimer needs to be easily identifiable, not sort of hidden away somewhere in, some intricate link from your website. But best practice is actually having some form of acknowledgement from people that are using your website as far as that disclaimer is concerned. So it might be a clicking of OK or checking the box.
Yeah.
But you've got to obviously then weigh that up against making your website user-friendly too. You don't want it so, onerous to navigate that the traffic is minimised because people can't be
Like
bothered.
every page has this big pop-up that you have to click through and go, I understand.
Yeah.
So for an email sig, for example, like on a simple basis like that, if someone has copied and pasted someone else's disclaimer and asks us to copy and paste it to the bottom of their email, is that like taking from the first person?
Is that copyright?
Yes, thank you. That's what I meant.
Things that are in the public realm and that apply across the board, obviously, is a different scenario. And I don't think anyone's going to
You stole my
disclaimer. So, yeah.
That's exactly what I wrote, and you changed the business name.
If someone uses our terms and conditions for our quote, I would crack shits because I wrote them and they're fucking hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a creative work. That's
Yeah.
protected by copyright.
And so then on a website, so if people have like a contact form or whatever, or they're opting in for something and they have that tick box saying, I've read your privacy policy terms and conditions, and you just have them as a link to the pages.
Yeah.
That's still an acceptable way of doing that.
And that's really the only practical way to do it.
Because that's what I mean. If you just got a form and then you've got the 50 million
you don't want to
things
take
read
it away
underneath.
from the content that you're actually wanting them to read.
Yeah, because then the scroll down to get to the submit button is kind of...
and they're lost in the terms and conditions and they haven't actually...
Because everyone reads all of those terms
that's
and
exactly
conditions.
right. They've just checked the box.
terms and conditions.
Yeah, sign here.
She's a lawyer. It's one of my worst things. Speaking of terms and conditions then, and my next one is, do you need like a proper terms and conditions for every competition that you do? So we have clients that we run terms and conditions for, terms and conditions that we run competitions for.
Like social media and things
Etc. like that. Do you, can you just have a terms and conditions template that you update, or is that something
Yeah, you
where...
absolutely can have it. So a lot of that content will apply across the board, and if that's the case, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every time for the sake of it.
So we don't need to go to solicitor every single time we run a competition being like, is this okay?
That's exactly right. So a lot of those conditions are going to apply across the board, so they can be replicated, and then you can just customize it to the extent that it's relevant to that particular competition. So if there's particular terms that only apply in that instance, then you can drop them in. But largely you can have a template, and if it's something intricate, you could just get that particular thing checked
out. And that's what I always say to clients again when we get to that point, is that I say I'm not a solicitor. This is not actually what I do for a living. I do this fun part over here, this legal boring crap.
I've
got a template, but if you want to get that checked by your solicitor to make sure that you're protected, go nuts sort of thing.
And again, that positive acknowledgement of it, you've then got your fallback to say, they've positively asserted that, yes, they agreed to those terms and conditions.
And I think that's the thing. It's it's just understanding there's certain things that you have to do as a legal requirement, and then there's other things where you do it because it protects you.
Yeah.
And when it comes to business...
And it's about perceptions and,
Well, you just want to know that you're doing things in the right way and that you are protecting you and your business and your staff and everything, because if you're leaving these legal loopholes open, it can cause damage.
That's exactly right. And then also it's about perceptions from the outside looking in. If all of those things are in place, it gives...
You're legit.
That legitimate
and we've all
impression.
dealt with dodgy suppliers and stuff like that, and you can just tell when someone's doing things
cutting
not the right
corners.
way. Yeah, exactly. It's,
and it is much
obviously
easier to cover off on all of those things from the outset, put those protections in place, rather than trying to damage control after the fact when you didn't do any of it, and you've got that he said, she said scenario, or you've breached and infringed obligations, and you're then, trying to
repair the damage.
That's after the fact. So, and it's much cheaper to spend the money at the front end than to pay lawyers at the back end to try and negotiate some sort of settlement.
So if a client's doing something as simple as send us a photo of our product that you've purchased or used, and you'll go in a draw to win a voucher or something like that on social media, they need a proper terms and conditions for that kind of thing?
Well, ideally, but that's the kind of, if you've got a base level terms and conditions, that's going to cover off on that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a 20-page
legal. And you don't want it to be
rather than a page sort of thing.
Yeah, decisions final, all those sorts of things. Negotiations will be entered into after the fact. You can't
exchange this for cash,
all those sorts of things. So it can be kept at a basic level, but it just clearly confirms these are the terms of the comp.
Again, and that's just protection, because you think when you're doing stuff, you sort of think about what you would do. You're like, if I won something, I'd be so excited. But there are people who, if they win something...
I'm trying to trade this off for something else.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't actually want this.
Can I swap this in for this or whatever? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's sort of and that's why these things have come about.
And all the expectations are clear from the outset. And that's where, if you've communicated, then you're less likely to have fallout after the fact.
So we have like the Spam Act and stuff, which is one of the ones I do have like a little bit of a rudimentary understanding. But again, I always try to say to clients, I'm not a lawyer, so I could be wrong. Check with them, sort of thing. But there's some of the stuff I sort of know, but I just want to get it from an actual proper lawyer. The one-click subscribe. Why do we have that?
Yeah. So if you're sending like commercial marketing messages, SMS messages, it's, I guess, that level of protection that you have to be able to easily opt out. So it gets referenced as a one-click unsubscribe. Right. It doesn't literally have to be one click, but it has to be a straightforward process. So it can't be.
Don't always have one click, and I'm like,
so it has to be straightforward. It can't be that you have to jump through so many loops that it's unduly onerous and you can't opt out because obviously
so
then that's
easily able
it just needs
to
be
opt out of someone's email list, opt out of someone's SMS list or whatever.
Yeah, I was happy to be on it initially. Now I want to opt out. It just has to be not necessarily one click, but straightforward.
Okay,
so you can easily opt out. And obviously there's significant penalties if you're breaching the Spam Act. So individuals, first time offences, 44 grand can be the penalty.
Shit.
If you're a company, 200 grand.
Are you up on what
so,
oh
my god, I need to reread that thing.
So you've got to comply with your legislation. But yeah, ultimately it's not
My
one.
hands are sweating.
we might put a link to that in the podcast notes.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, and so then another one that we get from people, and this is a really big one for us, is actually how to legally collect people's data. So if you've ever listened to podcasts before, I'm a massive fan, I'm a huge believer in having an email database. Because you do not own your website traffic. If Google changes its algorithm, you lose it. You do not own your social media fans. If Facebook goes closes down, you don't have that.
Lost.
But your email database is a business asset. It's something that you actually own and can pass on. But building that legally is also important. So I guess you can give us a couple scenarios of what is and isn't legal when it comes to collecting people's data.
So then that just comes back to the permission aspect. So, and it can be granted many different ways. So you can tick a box to sign up to receive exclusive offers when you're finalising a purchase. You can enter details on the particular website when you're signing up, but you've got to be really clear about what information you're collecting, why you're collecting it, how you're going to use it, and what you're going to do. People are very minded about protection of their private information these days. But more so, obviously, the increased threats around cyber threats and fraud and all those sorts of things. Again, that comes back to you don't have to have a privacy policy on your website. It's not a legal requirement, but there's obviously value in doing it because people have expectations when it comes to that, and they want to know,
level of
how you're using it and why you're using it and whether you're going to be sharing it with third parties, and basically they're signing off on all of those things. So you can use then, if you've collected that information with their consent from the outset, you can, as long as that information is not withdrawn, you can continue to use it on that basis. And so if it's an old database, as long as the info hasn't been, or the permission hasn't been withdrawn, you can continue to use it. As long as you haven't, say if you collected in your capacity as Rebel Marketing and then you decide to go off and start a business venture that's entirely unwritten. You can't take that information because they've given it to you.
They give permission to Rebel Marketing not to. And I guess that's my biggest thing with clients is that we have people who go, oh, here's all my customers. Can I use them as my database? And I'm like, as far as I understand it, even though, so when I first started in marketing, and I could be wrong, when I first started marketing, my understanding was that if someone had purchased from you, there was an understanding that they wanted to hear from you. But that changed when the Spam Act changed, and it was then that they had to give direct permission to receive marketing and commercial messages. So even if someone's done, so like for example, when someone comes to the agency and is a client of ours, we don't subscribe them to Wild Oats. They don't just get added to it because they happen to do business with us. They have to actually opt in to being in that database themselves. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so it all comes down to that permission, the permission not being withdrawn, and using the info for the purposes for which they gave the permission. So Yeah.
I was pretty sure because I've had this where I've been added to people's databases because I'm in their address book.
Yeah.
And so they've started a business and then they've started sending me messages and I'm like, I know you, so I'm not going to take you to task on this.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that's not right.
No, it's not right. You haven't ticked the boxes. You haven't met the legal requirements. But yeah, it comes down to, are people going to take you to task on it, or are they not fazed by it?
Yeah. And I guess that's the thing. Like, you can always opt out of stuff and everything, but it's just like, I didn't give you permission to send me
not a free-for-all.
Your freaking spiritual health and well-being crap that I don't care about. You know what I mean? Not that I don't care about health and well-being, but like, there's this one particular one who did it to me where I was like, I don't like the stuff that you do, and I just feel like you've taken my data without my permission, and it's like, it's wrong, man.
Yeah.
See, I'm a fighter.
Again, that's where you've got, and there are obviously significant penalties under Privacy Act and Spam Act, so
$4,000 worth. Holy shit, that is massive.
That's scary in the context of a small business. That's wild.
Well, and I mean, that's the whole point. Those make those kind of size of penalties because it
actually has to be a deterrent. Otherwise, people are like, I'll take the hit.
On the wrist.
I'll take
like $1,000.
My return on investment is worth the hit. So
crazy. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, that was all of my questions, but I did just want to wrap up with something as well. So we're talking a lot about, how to do your marketing and etc. And so a lot of this is related to established businesses and established business owners. Obviously, we also have an audience of people who haven't actually taken that next step in starting their business yet. So I just literally had a phone call last week from this dude who's like, been recommended to you, I'm starting a business, where do I start, can we come in and have a meeting and talk about my logo and stuff? And I was like, I totally get why you want to jump to the fun stuff, because marketing is super cool, like I understand, but I'd highly recommend before you come to us, go to an accountant, go to a solicitor, because there's like all this shit that you kind of need to sort before you do the marketing.
To jump into the fun stuff. And that's absolutely correct. And that's where we can work collaboratively, lawyers, accountants, solicitors, etc. Because we've also all got our separate skill set. Like, I'm absolutely not going to touch the numbers. That was one of the other reasons I did law. It's just like, my skill set doesn't lie with maths or science or numbers. Likewise, my skill set doesn't lie in the creative field either. But there are things that are so important to get right from the outset. So, what type of structure? Are you a sole trader? Are you running in a company structure? Are you, a partnership? A trust, and you need to get it right.
That's a big one.
You need to get it right from the outset.
The order, because if I don't have a name for my new exciting business yet, because I haven't got Jade's help, you can't really register anything or start setting stuff up.
I didn't think about it from that perspective.
No, I can't make a bank account in that name or anything like that.
So there's going to obviously be quite
back and forth.
That's exactly right, and overlap, and you're going to be seeing these people.
So it's not like direct sort of like order of who to see. It's more a bit of an order of what to get done, sort of thing, and that could be going back.
And that's going to obviously vary. Some people are going to know what they want from the outset. Some people are absolutely green on this, and they'll need that initial conversation, and they'll need, the marketing team pointing them in the direction of a lawyer or an accountant to say, okay, well, I can look after this stuff for you, but you're going to have to get your accountant to register your ABN or register your company, etc. And you obviously need to get that stuff right from the outset, because if you start running a business in a certain structure and then you've built it up, you've built up the value and the worth, and then you realise, from an asset protection perspective or something else, I haven't done it the way I should have done it, and now I want to transition to something else. Obviously, you're going to incur costs that you need not have incurred if you just set it up right from the outset.
And like if someone comes to us with a name and we do the logo and everything, and then they realise someone else has actually got that name trademarked,
right.
They've wasted that time and money.
And we can't not charge them because they can't use it. It's like, well, we
just
spent hours and hours.
We did the work, but we didn't do these steps.
And that's not our area. That's where we need your help.
So that's where we work together.
We're not the solicitor who can do all of the protection part of it.
We can have a look at a couple of things to see,
searches and stuff. Like, we can do basic stuff like that, but I always say it's not definitive because, there's like whole other layers that I'm not even aware of, let alone know how to access.
And there's lots of things that, you should be setting up from the outset. So if you are in business with someone else, ideally a partnership agreement, a shareholders agreement that covers off on, what are people's capital contributions, how's the profit share going to work, if someone wants to opt out, what are the buy-sell arrangements, if we're bringing someone in,
and how it's
the exit plan.
At the end. When you're at the start, you still need to think about how it could end.
Yeah, and that's the right time to do it because, it's all touchy-feely, everyone's happy, we're really excited about it, we're all on the same page.
Emotional in that way that it can, where it's like, well, I just expected that this was going to happen and that
we
we
were
would
gonna be
split
friends
50-50.
forever.
And it's like, well, I did most of the work, so why would I split 50-50?
And those roles and responsibilities
that we see all the time. To try and negotiate then a fair, logical outcome when everyone's emotions are running high and the relationships are burned. And that's where you'll spend 10 times as much as you would have spent just putting it in place at the outset. And there's nothing to say, you've got your shareholders agreement or your partnership agreement. If you can negotiate something to the alternative, that's okay. But otherwise, you've got your fallback position.
Yeah.
Well, if we can't agree on something in the alternative, this is the way.
It's like a business prenup.
I love that. That's so cute.
And lots of other things, like you've obviously got leases, licenses, you might be buying the premises from which you're going to operate. Otherwise, leasing, we can make sure you're covered off in, terms of the necessary protections as far as the lease or license are concerned. But it's like a collaborative approach because there are various different aspects that need to be covered.
And it's not just linear. It's not like go to this person, then go to this person, then go to this person.
You won't get a one-stop shop.
No,
yeah,
so that's like
it's all kind of, and then working in tandem.
It's
zigzags. But it's working in tandem as opposed to
I'm going to go to this person first, and
and then now we're done. Okay, moving on to you. Okay, now we're done. Now on to you. Cool, awesome. I think that's all of my questions answered. Was there anything else you had?
No, that was all from me. You didn't have anything else to throw in since we've...
No, all good. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's all right. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, dude, really appreciate it. Love having you on. I knew you'd be good.
Always trust Jay to have faith in me, so thank you.
I'm very good at doing that. It's one of my skill sets, is believing in people. Cool.
See, she's a big softie.
Oh, thank you, Ange.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Marketing and Margaritas. Find more free marketing tips, tricks and laughs at rebelnation.com.au.